Saludos a toda la afición de Lucha Libre Online. Este que les habla es Michael Morales Torres, integrante del equipo de Lucha Libre Online. Y tenemos el enorme privilegio de presentarles a nuestro invitado especial en la tarde de hoy, ex superestrella de WWE y ex superestrella de NXT, también jugador de baloncesto en su momento dado. Zechariah Smith llega aquí, el gigante Zechariah Smith llega por primera vez a Lucha Libre Online. Man, it is an absolute honor for us to have you as our guest, Zechariah. How are you doing today?
Thanks, man. I'm doing real well. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's our pleasure to have you as our guest. And okay, you were a former basketball player prior to enter to the wrestling industry. Did you ever, watch wrestling at any point prior to your basketball career?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, when I was younger, I was a big fan. Huge fan of like The Undertaker or Hulk Hogan. Big Randy Savage fan. So I went to a couple Raw matches in my, I think the last one I went to was like 14. So. But, basketball definitely kind of took over as I got a little older and, colleges started coming and looking and everything. So, every kid at like 12, 13 years old, every little boy wants to be a wrestler, right?
So you mentioned some key wrestlers on this conversation, but what was the thing that hooked you from pro wrestling? For some people, it's a storyline, a pay-per-view, or a specific wrestler. What hooked Zechariah Smith to pro wrestling industry?
It was The Undertaker, for sure. I can remember the moment it was, he was coming out in the coffin, and it was Triple H, and he grabbed him by the throat, came up out of the coffin, grabbed him by the throat, pulled him in, and it was just like this ambiance, this feeling. I was like, what in the world, So, and it's a little bit in the family too. My dad watched pro wrestling. My grandfather, huge pro wrestling fan. So,
So it's basically a family thing. Like it's like a Latin America, for example. Your parents enjoyed pro wrestling as well as your grandfather. Did they saw you as a pro wrestler, or did they saw you more as a basketball player?
So unfortunately, both my parents passed before I got into the WWE. Before that ever became even really a thing. So it was definitely a basketball thing. That's what kind of that kind of took over our lives at like 14, 15 years old. Everything became about basketball. So
how did your passion for basketball started? Which player, team, or moment hooked you up so you could love this sport so much for you to practice it?
Man, honestly, I couldn't remember. Some of my earliest memories in life are playing basketball. So I really couldn't even tell you when it started. I know for me, it was Shaq and Jordan and Kobe. Those three players particularly. When I got a little older, I was a real big Kevin Garnett fan just because I loved that attitude, that no nonsense, we're here to win, like we don't care. I love that. So,
So you mentioned three key names and Garnett, there are four. Did Shaq was a big impact for you as a basketball player due to your height and due to your physical force, or, just because the specimen he was as a player, because he was something completely different that people saw at that point?
I think it was a little bit of both, but the thing that really did it for me was like, I was always, even as a tall guy, I was always a little thicker, right? I was never a gangly tall guy, real tall and skinny. That was not my thing. So it just kind of showed me like, you can be big and thick and be athletic. Like you can be all three of those things, and you're not limited to one. So, and I guess that's kind of like, that's real different for basketball players. Whereas in the world of basketball, you're used to seeing more Kevin Garnett's like, yeah, they're muscular, but you're thin. And, that just wasn't me growing up, man.
Okay. So you mentioned Kevin Garnett, even though we didn't spoke about this, did the trash talk specifically from Kevin Garnett on everyone's ear, was that something you envisioned yourself doing in the future?
I won't lie to you, man. I was, when I played sports, it was less trash talk and more like, if I'm whooping your butt, like, yeah, I'm going to say something to you for sure. But for me, like, it was the competitiveness. It was like, nose to the grindstone. Like, I'm going to talk some trash, but I'm going to back it up the whole way. Like, I'm going to work every day to prove it. So I love that about that. Hardest working man in basketball, him, Kobe, those are things I love about those kind of guys.
So when was the first moment that you belonged to a basketball team, like a pro basketball team, either in high school, middle school, college? Like, when was the moment that you find your niche, like your click in basketball?
So I guess high school, I guess I got into AAU basketball was really like kind of where it all fell in. 14, 15 years old. I got in with a trainer that I still know this day, very, very good friend of mine named Brian Van. He runs a basketball academy out of Oklahoma now. And he trained me from the time, like I said, 13, 14 years old, and really, started giving me a real passion for it. Because I'd always done it, because I was always bigger than all the other kids. But he kind of really turned it from a hobby into a passion. And from there, yeah, man, I mean, I won a state championship. My school, actually, we won back-to-back state titles. Went on. We fell a little bit short in the national title game, working into regionals for JUCO, and then went on to play Division I out in California for 3 years before I finished. I finished up my 5th year doing my master's degree over at Morgan State.
Oh wow! For the record, how tall are you for defense?
I am 7 feet 310 pounds.
You are a massive dude. So was it ever like this, or there was a specific moment that, for example, I remember a story from a guy that in one summer he grew like 6-7 inches, like from 13 to 14 years. Did you had that kind of moment in your life?
I never had that kind of moment in my life. It was always consistently just grow, grow, grow. I know for years there, because everyone's got growing pains. When you grow that much all at once, you get cramps and growing pains. And I went through that for years because it was just, 3 inches a year kind of stuff until, I got older. I think I quit growing when I was 24.
Oh, wow.
So,
man.
Yeah, I went from 6'10" my first year of college, and I was 7 feet by the time I graduated.
So as a 7 feet guy, colleges will be basically looking for you everywhere. How did your college basketball career started? Did you had this thing where colleges were looking for you everywhere due to your height and your experience at basketball, or not at all?
Pardon. So it's actually kind of funny. My junior year of college, high school, I was very heavily recruited, Arizona State, Marquette, but I moved for my senior year back to Oklahoma. And so a lot of that recruitment kind of fell off. I still had a decent number, but I ended up deciding on a Division II for my first year. And that was because they came at me and they were already recruiting me, and they saw my brother and they wanted to recruit my brother as well. And, there were larger schools that I could have gone to begin with. But who passes up an opportunity to go play with their, older brother? We hadn't done that since high school. So it was, just something different to go do.
How was your experience playing college basketball? Because it can be even tougher than the NBA sometimes, in terms of everyone is hungry, everyone is thriving, everyone is looking to take that spot. And you have been in Division II for the first year, everyone is basically competition. So how was your experience there?
I mean, for me, man, it was an amazing experience. Because that's the way basketball always is. From AAU to high school, that's the way any real competition is. People are there to take your spot. The hardest competition you should play every day should be the people you're practicing against. That should be the way it is. So I don't know. Again, I love that kind of stuff. My brother was my main competition, so I got to go compete against my brother every day my first year. As I got older, and it got harder for sure. When I I switched over to Division I and went over to Cal State Bakersfield. The game kind of changed, and the hardest part really wasn't playing the basketball. There were 6 a.m. workouts 4 or 5 days a week. And you come back in at 2 to go until 5. But it was being a student athlete that was really by far and away the hardest thing. It was doing 18 hours of courses while you're trying to work out 2 or 3 times a day, while you're trying to have some semblance of a social life in college. And, it was, I tell people all the time, I've had professional jobs in different places. I've had a lot of different jobs, but the hardest thing I ever did in my life was the 5 years of being a student athlete. It was tough.
What did you study in college, and why did you decide that was the best thing for your future, as a future, worker?
So man, I won't lie to you. My freshman year, that was kind of my concern. I walked in, so I went after computer engineering my freshman year. Flunked out of a bunch of my classes. So it didn't go too great. Turned back around. I got my associate's degree in science. And so then I had to move into Division I and decide what I was going to get it in. And the school kind of came to me and were like, hey, we'd really like you to take a liberal arts degree because it's going to help raise our APA. So, you'll keep a 3.5. It'll help raise the, team APA. So I was like, okay, doesn't bother me because I'm planning on going to get a master's degree after this anyway. So doesn't really concern me too much. And so did that and got halfway through the master's degree. Then my eligibility ran out over there at Morgan State. So, but really, man, like I won't lie to you in that one. Like when I was coming through college, it was definitely like I had every plan to go play professional basketball. And there were certain things I took because obviously, you know, you want to leave yourself something to do. So, you know, I had other skills that I employed, but for me, it was definitely, I'm going to go play pro basketball. There's no question, this is it. So schooling wasn't the biggest concern until later in life.
So there, as mentioned, there's not just the NBA, there's China, there's Argentina, there's Puerto Rico, Philippines. There are a lot of leagues in basketball in the world. Your plans were to play pro basketball. Did you ever thought, you know, looking something besides the NBA, or the NBA was like Zechariah Smith's main goal?
I mean, I don't think anyone who has ambition to play their sport professionally ever says, I want to play at anything lower than a level than the highest possible level. So whether that's soccer, football, basketball, baseball, wrestling, doesn't matter. Everybody wants to compete at the highest level. So I knew that those were other options, so I never counted them out. But when if you're gonna ask me like what I had my eyes on, absolutely, it was the league, 110%.
So how did you ended up not playing pro basketball in the NBA, but being recruited by the biggest pro wrestling / sports entertainment company in the world? Like that's a huge bridge you need to construct there.
It's a little bit of a story, but all right, man, I got you. So I played pro for a couple of years, did some tours over in China, played professionally in Canada. And as that was going on, I was getting ready to go down to Mexico, actually, to play in the Chihuahua region. And I was at a combine with my agent out in Vegas for basketball. And it just so happened to be that one of the coaches there at the combine was a recruiter for the Harlem Globetrotters. I'm not sure if you're familiar.
Of course.
Yeah, they so you know they came to me and they were like, hey, we really like you. Look, we don't need you for the Globetrotters, but we need team captains for the Washington Generals, and they need to be the really rivals. Big guys. You know? Yes, sir. So they came to me, flew me out to New Jersey. I had a tryout. They loved me, you know. And I mean, if you've ever seen the show with them, obviously it's a lot of performance as well. You know, it's sports entertainment all in its own right. And so, you know, they hooked me up. They were like, you know, they made me the main character for the bad guy team, and I had to get mic'd up and, you know, play the game every night with them. And eventually, about 2 years into that, I was working out. Man, I can't remember if it was South Carolina or Georgia, somewhere in that area, where AJ Styles happens to live, and he just happened to bring his kids
Georgia
to a Harlem Globetrotter game. And so I have a friend named Alex Bright who happened to used to work in the WWE, and they knew each other. Alex, you know, got him good seats. He came to Alex after the game and said, hey man, great show. Really appreciate you. But hey, that big guy, he's fantastic with, you know, is this what he's doing, or does he have any interest? And they got to talking, and he was like, you know, because it's funny enough, I was getting ready to start trying for wrestling. I was getting my resume ready. It was, you know, I was going to send it in. I was going to start going to a wrestling school, all that. And, you know, fate just kind of stepped in, and he came to me in the back and was like, you know, I remember I was in the shower. I got soap in my eyes. It's after the game, you know, I'm washing off. And our manager runs into the locker room. Zach, you got to get out. You got to get out here right now. I'm like, what, man? You say I'm covered in soap. He's like, AJ Styles wants to meet you. I'm like, hey, get out of here. Quit messing with me. You know, like, you know, I'm not here to be played with. He said, no, I'm serious. He's out here right now. Come on. So I rushed out, hair's still wet. You know, I got a little soap in my beard. And, you know, we just start talking. He's like, you know, man, you know, kind of asked me what my interest was in wrestling, how long I've been playing basketball, if I had an interest in this. And, you know, we took a couple photos. He got my number and got me a tryout. So, I mean, the rest of the history, I went to the tryout. Like, you know, I ended up having 2 different tryouts. One was a private tryout, and one was a small group tryout. So it was like with like 5 college wrestlers that were coming in. So, you know, and they thought they saw something they liked.
So AJ Styles, one of the best wrestlers in the world, was the person that hooked you up for a tryout initially because he loved your performance as, you know, playing the Globetrotters. That's mind-blowing, man. I never in a million years expected this. This is not something you can find in the internet. This is something you need to go directly to the person. So thank you for this.
Of course.
Regarding the tryout, physical effort, it's basically like a boot camp, at least a small one, or at least that's has been described by many people, like a military boot camp or something. Do you feel comfortable with the process WWE has to select their new members?
So for me, it was a little different. For the private one, it was just me coming in for 3 or 4 days, and they just threw me into a class.
Okay.
And I just did class with them for 3 or 4 days. And then the small group one, we did something like that, but it was more, again, like the class setting. We went in with a couple guys and they took us through drills, spots, everything of that nature. And so no matter what you do in there, they're always going to physically test you at the end. So they're going to blow you up. They're going to, see what you're made of. They want to see you. They want to see you quit. Like they're going to do their best. Matt Bloom, all of them, they're going to do their best to make sure they see you quit. So, but they do it because that's what you got to do. But as far as the big group settings, I have seen those. Yes, it is very much like a boot camp style. You're running, you'll have 4 or 5 or 6 rings together and you're going each different ring and you're just going in the circuit sometimes, man. It's tough. It can be taxing.
Zach, where were you at the moment WWE notified you that they were going to sign you? You remember the style story and described that specifically beard and this beard cover and soap and everything. So where were you when WWE notified, hey, Zach Smith, you're going to be a WWE guy now? So
I was at home in Oklahoma. I was on break, actually, funny enough, from the Globetrotters for about a month when they gave me a call. I remember I was setting up some other stuff because we ran conventions with them as well on the side. So we would help them run conventions. And I was getting ready to do that. And they called me and told me, hey, we're really excited and we're ready to offer you a contract, So I remember I ended up signing it while I was out in California too. So I was out there working at that time and I ended up signing the contract while I was out in California.
So you signed the contract with them while you are at California. Now there's a big move you need to do for your career, and that's moving to Florida. Place full of hurricanes, gators, and a lot of Latinos like me. So it's definitely...
Well, firstly, this is actually where I'm originally from. I was born in Titusville, Florida.
Awesome. So you went back home.
Yeah, hey, and it doesn't hurt. So I don't speak any Spanish, but eu falo um pouco de português.
Oh, so, it works. Yeah,
it works. Hey, so there's a lot of Brazilian people out in Florida, so I get by, yeah, man, I love Florida. I mean, you couldn't. I'm the kind of guy that I'd much rather be hot than cold. So I lived in Maine for a few years, in Baltimore for a couple years. No. I hated it. I always said the people are bitter because they're so cold up there, man.
So you moved back home. Basically, you're now a part of the WWE. How was your first day with the company? You just simply go to the performance center. You went to an office. Like, what was the process in Zach Smith's first day with WWE?
So first day, man, it was really just orientation.
Okay.
So we went in, we met who our coaches were going to be. They took us in and basically kind of laid out the do's and the don'ts, what you have access to, how things operate, like what you're going to need, and just kind of give you the full, the rundown of everything, right? Like any company orientation would be. I mean, because at the end of the day, the WWE is a company, and it is a business, and it operates as such.
So you went your first day, that was orientation day. Then it's a moment to taste the canvas as a pro. Like you had the opportunity to went into a WWE ring and started training with the best, basically with Matt Bloom, with Norman Smiley. There were a lot of gals and guys over there that helped you develop your career. So how was your experience working in the PC with the WWE?
So first and foremost, my experience was nothing but great in that regard. I mean, obviously any job has its challenges, but I mean, for me also, it was a whole new thing, right? Like I was coming from basketball. Yeah. This was entirely new to me. So there's that level of excitement, but to the coaches, first and foremost, big shout out to Robbie Brookside. That was my first wrestling coach. Love that man. He's unbelievably knowledgeable, so I mean, couldn't have asked for a better first coach. But I mean, just in general, the PC, there's no coach in that PC that doesn't know. I mean, they all have decades of experience. There's hundreds of years in there. So it's a little bit intimidating. I obviously taken some bumps prior, like at that point, because I've been in there for tryouts and I got a little bit of training in and everything, but it was a little nerve wracking because you want to go in there and do good. You're immediately like, you're not instantly in a group of just new people. Like you're in a group of people that have been doing it for a while, and you were the green one in that group. So, it's nerve wracking in that instance.
So let's talk about the creative process in WWE. You were used to sports entertainment. You were used to the entertainment part as well. So you had an advantage over many other people that were there already in that department. How can you describe the creative process in WWE, at least what you experienced with them?
So it was a lot of kind of like, how can I say this? They give you kind of an opportunity to be like, okay, this is what we want. Give us something. And at that point, like obviously there's always people there to help you with it. But they do expect something out of you to like, okay, like, we want a 30-second promo. It needs to be about this. You're the heel in this instance. Like, you just lost. Give us something. And really, like, they want to bring out what is natural to you. Because I've always said, like, in any instance of sports entertainment or any kind of acting in general, there needs to be a level of authenticity. Because if you don't believe you, I'm never going to believe you. Just plain and simple. So it was fun, man. It was also challenging at times. They challenge you in different ways, like, do a promo like this. So you just got to figure it out for yourself, but you also had access to these tools and these people that were there to help you. So it was a really good environment for that.
Did the company ever notify you that they were like from some official plans for you to make like a former debut, not just a simple appearance or in a segment or anything? Like, is Zech Smith going to he was going to have a former debut either in NXT or the main roster for WWE?
No, nothing to that. There were never any plans in place as far as I'm aware. So, like we went through some names, we went through that creative process, but never got as far as that. There were never any solid plans of that nature.
So the company unfortunately decided to take separate pathways from you. Both sides parted separately due to budget cuts and quote unquote the reasons they were telling publicly, even though they had a $974.6 million profit from last year. Let's skip the sad part and the uncomfortable part, but did you felt happy with what you've achieved inside the WWE in terms of the training part, in terms of getting built up to be a future superstar? Do you feel happy with what you did in WWE, or do you felt that you needed to do way more that you were granted?
It's kind of a mixed bag a little bit, because on the one hand, no, I definitely am not like, am I satisfied with what happened? No, absolutely not. I definitely wanted an opportunity. There was a lot of time, money, and effort invested to never even get on a TV screen or to never even wrestle in that capacity. But am I happy with them? I mean, how can I be? I'd have to be petty to be upset. I mean, I got to learn and wrestle and work through a pandemic. They taught me an entirely new. They brought me to an entirely new industry I knew nothing about. They trained me. They paid me. They taught me how to do this. So, like, am I bitter in any way? No, I'm grateful to them. Like, am I happy? No, no one's happy about getting fired. I mean, come on, right? So, did I want more? Of course. Am I going to go get more? Absolutely. Like,
which leads me to my next question. When people get some of these notifications, we've all received a firing notification in our lives, and it's not pretty. And there are two ways of taking it. You can just sit down in a fetal position and cry for weeks, or you can just stand up and keep fighting like you've done so far. So do you have plans to keep wrestling? Like, do you want to stay in the wrestling industry, or do you want to go back to basketball? What do you want to do with your life now?
So at this point, I feel like I've kind of taken basketball as far as I can take it. And yeah, the opportunity is there for me to go back. I have had a couple of people contact me about, if I am interested. Right now, though, no, I'm going to stick with wrestling because, this is something I've fallen in love with. I really have learned, like I said before, when earlier in the interview, every kid grows up wanting to be a wrestler. So when you finally get the opportunity, you start doing it and you realize, like, man, I love this. Like, and it allows me to, because I've been an athlete my entire life, a competitor my entire life. So it allows me to bring all of those things that I've learned my entire life and cultivated my entire life and apply them to an entirely new skill and industry. So that's exciting. I've been training actually over at Devon Dudley's Academy, Triple D's, out here in Orlando, Florida. So I'm still training, still getting ready. I'm still so I'm looking at a couple things right now. I won't say anything right this second. I'm also working with a couple of guys, and we've been doing some work. I got a shoot at the end of September out in Vegas. That's nice. For more, that's gonna be for more like NFT stuff though. But other than that, man, like I said, I am gonna I'll be more actively pursuing bookings after October 1st, just because I do have some to finish. I do have a few things to finish up through September. But yes, I will be continue wrestling, and yes, I will be, looking to take it as far as I can take it and be the best I can at it.
Which leads me to my next point, and I'll say this in Spanish as well. Once you finish, where can promoters all around the world, from Mexico, Puerto Rico, Panama, Argentina, Colombia, Chile, where can promoters contact Zech Smith, WWE guy, trained by Ruby Brookside, by Matt Blum, by Norman Smiley, by the best in the industry, basically, now with Devon Dudley as well? Where can promoters contact you to acquire your services, either for a pro wrestling match, for autograph signings, meet and greets? Where can they contact you?
So the first thing I would say would just be to email me or find me on Instagram. So my email would be ztjsmith139@gmail.com. And then my Instagram, just send me a direct message on Instagram. It's going to be ZTJ_Smith. I'm definitely available. Like I said, I'll be taking every day after I can get after October 1st, going from there, man. I'm excited to get started. I'm excited to see what the landscape looks like out there.
Also, let me translate this to Spanish as well. Zech Smith, luchador entrenado por lo mejor en WWE, experiencia en WWE, experiencia jugando en China, experiencia jugando con los Globetrotters también, con los Washington Generals. Ha hecho de todo en su carrera. 7 pies de estatura, casi 300 libras de peso. Un monstruo que puede ser un asset excelente para cualquier empresa de Latinoamérica, de España, de Francia, de donde ustedes quieran. Solamente tienen que ir a un lugar, bueno, a dos, vamos a decirlo de esa manera. Booking email sería ztjsmith139, ztjsmith139@gmail.com, o directamente a través de su cuenta de Instagram, que es ztj_Smith o CTJ_Smith. Lo vamos a dejar aquí a la parte de abajo en la descripción, en los comentarios. So it's going to be down here for the promoters to get all the information, man. Before we go to our last 2 questions, I wanted to thank you so much, man, for your time. It's been an absolute blast to have you here as our guest. So you picked wrestling over basketball. You've explained your reasons. You could be pursuing an international career in basketball as well as an international career on wrestling as well. But we all know that basketball pays better than wrestling. So you're not here for the money. Why do you want to do this? Why are you pursuing this with your heart so much?
So there's a couple of things for that. One, man, like I said, I feel like I've taken basketball about as far as I can take. And basketball pays, but basketball, certain levels of basketball, you have to be on a certain level to actually make a decent living at basketball. I mean, it's just I got buddies that play in Costa Rica for $500 a month. So those leagues exist. They're out there. But for me, again, man, just the love of it and things. And also 2 things. One is there's not near the pressure that comes with pro basketball. I mean, there is pressure in this, but it's a different type of pressure. It's not my replacement is sitting in the stands watching this game right now pressure. It's not I could have 35 points tonight, but if we lose, I'm still getting fired pressure. I mean, so, depending on where you are playing internationally, there is a level of pressure to play and anxiety that comes with playing that, it's good for a degree, but this is just something I don't know. That's just something I don't want to go back to right now. And then the other side of that is there's just so much more opportunity in pro wrestling in that degree. Pro wrestling leads to so much more it's included in so much more. And I don't know a better way to say that than there's just so many more paths that pro wrestling lead down. Whereas basketball, you're going to be in basketball. You might think you're going to be a coach, a commentator, whatever, but you're going to be in basketball. So I definitely understand that point. It's not what you were, quote unquote, born to do. Is what you want to follow, and you're doing exactly
that, like, not just because you're a 7 tall guy you need to play basketball, or not just because you're Latino you're good in soccer or football. So I definitely respect that. Last but not least, what drives you in life? What passionate you about life? Like, what makes Zech Smith life run?
So 2 things. First and foremost, gratitude. I mean, I've, you know, for all the bad things that have happened in my life, and there's everyone's got a bucket, right? Everyone's got a bucket of bad stuff that's happened to them in life, but life's been good. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, I wake up, I take a deep breath, you know, I got a roof over my head, you know, I got people that love me. So gratitude, 110%. I'm grateful for every day I get to wake up and, you know, be alive, and I take full advantage of that. And secondly, and this might sound a little bit off tone from the gratitude one, is like the fear of being mediocre. Like 110%. Yeah. And that might, like I said, that might go like opposite of the gratitude thing a little bit, but I couldn't imagine like not like, and I don't, you know, not succeeding in life in general and being happy and stuff, because I've worked too hard for it. I'm gonna continue to work hard for it. And like, you know, the idea of being mediocre when you work that hard, like, you know, like I work too hard to be that. So, and I know I guess that sounds awful, but
man, great message, inspiring words to everyone that wants to be someone out there. So definitely they need to look after that. It's not about being a normal person. It's about to exceed at everything you do. And I know you've done it so far. As mentioned, thank you very much for your time. Do you have any last words to all the fans in Lucha Libre Online that are listening to you right now?
Hey, man, I just want to say thank you very much. And you guys be on the lookout, because I will be on a TV screen near you soon. Count on it.
Awesome, man. And let's wrap this up en español. Este fue Zechariah Smith y Michael Morales Torres para Lucha Libre Online, la marca número 1 de Pro Wrestling y Combat Sports en español.